So my name is Dr. Strother. Just wanted to welcome you all to our first Capstone class. I'm excited to get to know you. Excited to teach this class. So it's actually my second time teaching this course. I had half taught it back in the summer of 24. And so um, just wanted to first tell you that it's a little bit of a different feel than what you'll get from Dr. Annette or other professors you maybe have had in the past at Biola. Um, I operate out of Missouri, grew up in Illinois, and um, more of a Midwesterner's approach to financial planning, if that's such a thing. But anyway, all that being said, I know I've got a few students along with me. That are going to be following along. So as we get going, feel free to stop and ask questions and make this as interactive as possible. I don't love like the sound of my voice, so really always enjoy opportunities to hear you guys speak. And so we're just going to start by sharing. Got a little PowerPoint here to kind of let you know who I am and what's going on and hopefully a little summation of what things will be in this class. Um, and so I kind of just going through some things, I thought I'd structure it with the question of like, who am I? Who are you guys? I know I've already kind of talked very briefly with Jake. He said he's from the LA area, and so I want to get to know you. That's a big part of what we do in education, and so it's not just about material and classwork and turning things in on Canvas, but also about engagement and building relationships. And so I'll start by telling you I've been in education my entire career. It's taken form in many different ways. I started as a high school educator um, and did that for 6 years. A rural school district north of St. Louis. So I live on the kind of along the Mississippi River in a town called Hannibal. Um, so I did that out of college. It was a great opportunity for me to stay in our college town here while my wife finished up her undergrad. And then did that for a few more years, ended up getting um, taking over a course load for a personal finance class in the state of Missouri. That's a requirement. Really enjoyed teaching that. Was looking to continue my education while also hopefully maybe developing into a role where I could have a PhD and work with university students. And so ended up getting my PhD in personal financial planning because I taught the class personal finance, which I loved. And so, fast forward a little bit, ended up with a university position here in town. We have a very small liberal arts Christian university, Hannibal LaGrange. And so I taught there for 7 years full time. Also had another full-time position there. I was actually a coach for baseball. Which was wonderful for the season of life we were in. But with kids aging, I looked to kind of do something a little bit different. So the last 4 years now, I've been a financial planner here in Hannibal. So, one positive of having me in class is that you will hopefully hear a lot of unique situations and stories that are true. I think, Dr. Annette does a really good job with the material that you have. Like I got the case here for the Lopez's that you will be going through. And he has also that background. So when you have a combination of someone who has the professional practitioner experience and also someone who has the education background, it makes for, what I think is kind of the best of both worlds. So that's a little bit of who I am. I've got little pictures to kind of show what stage and phase of life we are in. So we've got three little ones. This is my youngest. I'll start with the little one and work our way forward. So he's 4, and his name is Abram. And classic professor move, right? I got to show pictures of the fam, but I hopefully gets kind of you guys connected a little bit with what we do. Making cookies on the left, on the right, he's helping me demo our bathroom, which we remodeled this last fall. A little guy loves power tools and he loves working. So, hoping like someday he continues doing that, goes into the trades and builds us a house or something. This is our whole family. So again, you see Abram there. Then we have a daughter, Jetta. She's 7, and Elijah on the right there. He's 10. That's me and my wife. We're taking a little cruise tour, and that's actually in Hannibal on the river, Mississippi. And there's our daughter. She's 7 now, Jetta. Got a lot of cats, a lot of animals where we live. 2 cats, 1 dog, 5 chickens. I don't even know how many goldfish, but we live kind of on the outskirts of Hannibal, kind of close to the river. All right, so here's a picture of my wife and I riding our bikes along the river, little river thing, barge going on in the background. And Yeah, so my wife, her name is Janelle. She works for Cisco, works from home. And here we are just managing with 3 little ones under 10, but it's a really fun season in life if we can stop and appreciate it. And so here we are at the cold during the winter time in our hometown. So we love our town. It's about the size of a very, very small city. It's got about 20,000 people in it. And here's our son Elijah. Here's our dog. We just recently adopted her. Her name's Penny. So, one fun thing that we did recently is we built a tree house together. And so here's a picture of the final finished product. We've got a little land, some woods, and we got some chickens. And so I was going to make a cool analogy that, chickens are great, and they're awesome when they're laying eggs. These 5 eggs are about all that we've got all winter. Been a tough winter for chickens. Don't know why. Probably just too cold, I guess. So the firm I work for is called Benson Financial Group. So I thought I'd just throw our webpage up here, a little bit about who we are. Here's a snapshot of Hannibal located along the river. So we operate here and then out of a sister town just right up the river, Quincy. I'll show you the picture of that here in a second. We're a full service financial planning operation. And so I've been here doing this for 4 years. I've had my licensing for about 3. Okay, so it's been a wonderful place to work and call home and actually kind of dive into the practitioner field a little bit. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know you guys and your stories. Probably won't take the time here to engage you guys over the Zoom unless you want to stop and take a minute and introduce yourself. You guys want to do that or not? Jake, Luca, and Kylie.
I can if you want, but probably okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Uh, yeah. So I'm a senior. Obviously, Biola University. I'm graduating with, uh, you know, obviously concentration in financial planning. Um, After I graduate, I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna do. Um, I have a couple different routes that I could go into. I have 4 brothers, all of which have actually already graduated from Biola. Um, 2 business majors, and then an art major, and then one was a interdisciplinary like anthropology English major. Yeah, kind of like I said earlier, born in LA. Born in LA. My parents do like missionary work. And yeah, I'm just really excited to, obviously see what I can learn from this class, but also kind of just be done, graduate, make the walk. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, of
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate you sharing.
course.
I assume you guys all probably kind of know each other too a little bit. So, um, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to me um, with this kind of stuff. All right, so let's kind of dive a little bit into the why, as in why are you here or why am I here? or how did I land, in this setting with you guys, teaching this class. So, um, kind of hopefully be pretty brief here. This is pretty much all I have for the slide, but like, I think what Biola does and the kind of as a Christian forward university is exceptional and unique. And so having a financial planning emphasis is really truly a special thing, especially for undergrad. I've had an opportunity to tour a lot of universities, go to a lot of conferences that have students from a mix of big private or big public schools and small private universities. And so the opportunity that you have to go over this type of coursework, setting you up for a career. And I know a lot of you probably are at this position, like Jake had said, where you're not too sure what direction you're going to take. You're just right now probably trying to just finish and keep your head above the water. Um, you know, it still is a wonderful, wonderful place to be in because this material is usually things that you don't quite get yet. A lot of times you have to go through CFP coursework or you have to go through another master's level um, type of classes to arrive at. And so um, I know that from my experience with students at Biola compared to other universities, you guys are heads above a lot of other people, right? And so just keep that in mind as you're working through things and as you're being challenged and pushed. I want to try to challenge and push you in the right way and give you guys opportunities to continue growing in the field. And so my story is like why I'm here is pretty I don't know. I kind of think it's interesting. I was at Kingdom Advisors 3 years ago, listened to Dr. Annette speak on worldview and finances. And don't usually do this, but decided to go up and speak with him and kind of rearrange my schedule so that I could get him and get a hold of him and just kind of talk with him for a minute about his research emphasis because very similar to the my dissertation work and kind of the place that I like very much about researching comparison effects on our finances, how outward externalities affect our spending, our money habits, and our satisfaction. And so I was able to just dive into that a little bit with him. And lo and behold, we'd finished with a PhD both at Kansas State. And so that kind of kicked off an opportunity to help him out with coursework during certain phases. And so one of those was last summer or 2 summers ago. And then now while he's on sabbatical. So I'm so blessed to be able to have an opportunity to dive into another university that teaches a biblical worldview while also mixing that with financial planning. My line of work now, I would say we're a faith forward firm here at Vincent Financial Group. So like I'm used to doing, trying, or at least working really hard in the industry to find the best ways to serve people in a way that is kingdom advancing. And so that's a big part of this class, right? Big part of the kind of your university's principles and what you guys are working toward. And so um, really excited to kind of see how that meshes and how that flows. And yeah, so it's always good to take pause, even in the midst of the busy schedule. I don't know if you're finished with spring break or starting it or ending it as you're doing these online courses, but like stopping and asking yourself the question of why, right? Like why am I here? What's the goal? Where am I moving forward are wonderful questions to ask. I've met a lot of people who have spent their whole careers in financial planning and have been wonderfully fulfilled by that. And oddly enough, I've met many people who are actually also miserable in the field. And usually it becomes kind of a hard posture that if you're doing it because it can be something that produces good income and is a steady paycheck, then a lot of times people do go through a lot of burnout. I had a lot of other people that I had met through my time in academics, but also now as a practitioner who have come in and then fizzled out of this industry because, it is in many ways, if you don't see it as a ministry, it can be kind of hard, just to be honest. But at the same time, you get the opportunity to dive into finances with people, and that always opens unique doors and opportunities to share with them, to open up with them, to cry with them, to be in a place of them vulnerable and you vulnerable, and that is good. That's healthy. That's kind of part of the field, right? And so we'll talk a lot about the the academic side, the things you have to know, right? The cerebral side of this field, but it is also a place of counseling and therapy, and a place, honestly, that needs redeemed. The story of financial planning is not one that typically revolves around, you know, people in the industry putting their faith first. It's usually and has historically been an industry that is more transactional. And so we want to challenge that and push on that, especially as you go through coursework here. I hope that that becomes, at least these next 8 weeks, a very uh, theme that we follow. Okay, so that being said, we went through the who, we went through the why. Let's just talk on the basics here, right? When, and so we've got Zoom class times. Um, I always say an hour, maybe more. Like this week, I've got a busy schedule. I will be needing to jump off around 1 my time, so that would be 11 your time. Zoom classes are posted as soon as I can get them up there, right? So I'll finish the class, let it upload for 20 or 30 minutes, and you should see it. I had a few students in our survey that told me that Wednesdays might work for them in the evenings, and a lot of them did not like the Monday, or just weren't able to make the Monday mornings work. And so I did post some special Zoom office hours on for those evenings. I'll be available. I'll be on. I'll be at my house. It'll be the evening for me. You might see a kid or two run by in the background, or try to sit on my lap, or a cat. Probably not a chicken. I'll have those put up by then. But anyway, all that being said, I that's just an opportunity for you guys to spend time answering questions. If we needed to go back through some material, we could. Last time I taught this class, I had several students who asked for office hours for just me and them, to sit down and go over material. And, that is the quickest way to a professor's heart, is just time together, right? And so, if you want to do that, just let me know. I have never told a student no. If we're trying to meet for questions or feedback or chat, we've always been able to make it work. And so that is kind of how I want to operate for Zooms. If you have issues, or if you feel like you're not getting connected well enough, let me know. If you need to get a hold of me because you have questions, as in we're working through material and you need to figure an answer to a question, I ask that you text me. Um, and I've got my number posted right up there, many times in announcements in the syllabus. But here's the deal, right? I've got a lot of emails. I've got my work email. I've got the online classes that I teach here in Hannibal. And then I've got this one. And so I want you to use my personal email, but I would actually prefer you to text me. I like texts because then I know for a fact that I won't feel this sadness whenever I'm like, oh, it's been 2 days and I didn't respond to this kid because I just hadn't seen that email come through. Okay. So shoot me a text. I don't mind it. It can be as simple as, hey, I don't want to, hey, I sent you an email. Just wanted to let you know so you could look at it and get back to me. That would be great. I love that. Okay. Um, and the grading structure as well, talking about the wins, right? Grading structure is going to hopefully stay the same as it has been in your other classes. So those will be due on Tuesdays. If you look forward to this week, hopefully you have. You're seeing what you have due coming up. There is a special, like, kind of an optional assignment. Dr. Annette had posted in there. And so that is about finding a mentor. Okay. And that is a phenomenal way to connect, to become, tied in with a networking community there. And so there's some options with that if you want to do it. Other than that, we'll be looking forward to our first week's assignments, in Canvas. So what is this, right? What is this class? the who, the why, the when, but now the what. And it should be pretty straightforward and simple. It's an overview of the overview, right, of the capstone. So here is usually the breakdown of the different aspects of financial planning. So this is a put it all together type of class. It's not meant to be heavy on material. Like I'm not going to probably be presenting to you anything you've not heard yet. But the idea of putting it all together in a meaningful way and understanding the implications of how it all flows together, being able to put together a final polished financial plan for a client is kind of the big goal to show that you can put it all together. Okay, so um, here is kind of the breakdown, the week one work. You've got the mentor assignment I talked about, quiz, case, and then a financial plan that we'll be working through for the Lopez family. So we have weekly work, and then we have weekly work that ends up being compiled into a financial plan for a final financial project, right? And so this is wonderful flow because the financial plan will be you creating what I consider it to be a rough draft in your first week's assignments. Now, the closest you can get to the final draft, the better grade you'll get in the earlier stages. Also, the easier it will be to transition it to a really good financial plan, polished financial plan at the end. But it is just that, right? So this week we'll be working through like your basic budgeting for the client, their cash flow needs, their ratio analysis and stuff like that. And so it's your job to try to pull up some material from the previous classes that you've been in, put it into the Lopez case, and then that first part will be finished. And then as we kind of go through, right, you'll be adding to it. Once we get close to the end, you'll be going back in, seeing the comments that I've made, um, making adjustments so that it'll fit that final project and then submitting that. We'll be using the case approach to financial planning um, by Grable, Sages, and Kruger, all big names in financial planning. I know Grable is a K-State guy now at Georgia, so um, pretty big names there in that textbook. All right, so let me pull up our class here. Okay, make sure I'm sharing the right thing. All right, so this is our class information. Okay, so you'll see I've been posting announcements here. Okay, I'll continue to do that. Our assignments are all located here. Under the syllabus, there is this nice little course summary. Shows us the things that we have due. Okay, and so we'll be working toward this Tuesday, March 17th deadline for the most part. So I would want to dive a little bit into the Zimmer case, the cash flow planning. Before we get there, let's kind of just talk a little bit about this quiz. The quiz is a basic information about the numbers in personal finance. So yeah, it will help if you have went through the lecture one with us, okay? And there is actually another video in here. Dr. Annette can show you if or you can watch in order to prep for the quiz. But you can take the quiz, look at this 12 times, right? So it's more about um, your effort than it probably is about what you know when it comes to this thing, right? Students that only take it once and don't get a good grade and don't choose to retake it, I'm always like, what is that telling us here? Right. So, do your best. But you're welcome to retake it almost as many times as you would need to get a 19 out of 19 on that. I like to play in the module. I've always, whenever I've taught online classes in Canvas, always lived in the modules section. So I've also kind of prepped this for us, and maybe it's kind of like this in your other classes as well. You can very easily see all the things that you have coming and coming due. All right, so just so we know, as we talk about this big idea of a financial plan, okay, we have examples of those here. The Beto, Freeman, and opening plan are all example plans that you can look into if you want to see kind of a finished project, beginning with the end in mind, so to speak. And so just keep that in mind, okay? If you ever get stuck somewhere and you just want to see something that's in a good position, already done, you can look at those. Those are great examples. I'd be happy to share with you also some financial plans that I have or that we make here. We use a lot of software, but also integrate those. Usually give our new clients going through planning binders. And so I'd be happy to kind of peel back the curtain on our end and kind of show you guys a little bit about that. Before I forget about it, we actually, my office, we are going through a add-on we're building. So if you ever hear any loud noise, it's probably something that's going on in the background. Like we're adding 2 stories this way and just more offices space for our building. So like if I unblur my background, I've got my coordinator assistant working behind me here. But then I also don't have windows anymore. And we joke, and he's actually a recent college grad, but we joke that this is kind of like our dorm room right now. I'm almost 40, so it makes me feel cool to say that, but we don't have windows and it's blacked out in here and we're kind of on top of each other. Not enough room for a bunk bed or anything, but um anyway, that's if you're wondering what that was whenever I was blurring out my background. Or if you hear a loud noise, that's where that's coming from. All right, so kind of just back at it with this. Let's start in, let me just share my desktop. So we have the case approach to financial planning. Okay, so this will be our text. Wonderful job of giving us good information on the front end, and then as you get deeper into it, you can see it's got these cases that we will be using. Okay, so week one, the Zimmer case. If I just open that up, kind of peruse through what we're looking at, you can see that this is going to be a quiz that you're going to be answering. Okay, and those are coming from this situation right here, right? So as you pull up your text, it will help to start flowing and working through this situation here. All right, be able to answer the questions. Um, which honestly, this is a big part of what we do in financial planning. Um, Financial planning is this wonderful field where you get, I always call it like an interdisciplinarian's like playground. You have someone that comes in that oftentimes will be asking questions because of financial change that is prompted in their life. Here, this person is looking for review, right? So maybe she's already got accounts established. They just need to know how they're doing with their finances. What I mean by like interdisciplinary dream is it's just a field that covers so many different bases. Okay. And so, you think about, a lot of types of work out there, right? You're kind of rutted into this system that is very normal and you have a sandbox that you work out of. Okay. Well, our field, our sandbox is quite expansive, right? Because we have to know what's going on in employer situations in our town. We have to be connected with businesses and nonprofits alike, as well as working with individuals on a daily basis. We have to help people out who don't have jobs. We have to help people out who do have jobs and need to change jobs. We have to help people out who want to stop their job and retire. And so I always ask the question whenever I start with a financial planning question. Okay, I sit down with the client, and I've asked this in the past, right? Hey, students, what would be the first question you ever ask a client, like a new person that you're just meeting? And my question is always, so what is prompting the change in your financial life that is leading you to going and seeing a financial planner? And that question, right, usually gets so much information, right? That we already kind of see a little bit of what's going on. You also start learning like you have to be good at interviewing people and making them let their guard down, helping them let their guard down. You have to be good with interpersonal skills. You have to have good bedside manner, so to speak. You need to be good with personalities, understanding what makes people tick, and the psychological and the social side of things is very important. And all this while creating this helpful profile of someone as you kind of interview them and walk them through the process, right? So I love the mix of skill that this field takes. And so this Bonita Zimmer case is not going to get you much of that, right? It's just strictly mostly talking about her finances and answering questions about, right, if she were to sell this or that, what are the numbers like behind the scenes? So there's that. All right, now let's kind of dive a little bit more into kind of the material that we have for this week. And so we got two lessons. Gonna pull those up here. Actually, probably should just share that screen. That'll be a little better for us. Lesson one is about what the financial planning process is. Whenever I was a student, a PhD student, we began with these steps and the CF board definitions. Pretty heavy, but in terms of like what is financial planning? Let me give you a definition that just sounds really fancy, you know. But here you can see the six steps of financial planning process, right? Establishing and defining the client-planner relationship, gathering data, looking at goals, looking at their status, figuring out if they're in a place of strength or of weakness when they're coming to see you, and then developing and presenting a plan that shows them recommendations, um, and then implementing it and monitoring it, right? So again, back to the Zimmer case, you're at the implementing and monitoring phase. But if we were to step it back and just establish the client planner, like all financial planning really does is guided by this six-step process, right? And there's a lot of nuance to that once we get into it. And so if you look at planner practice and skill number one, I'm just going to go through these, hopefully take about 5 minutes. Um, you have to understand people, right? In order to understand this field and how it works with. And, most of the time when people hear you're a financial planner, they stop and ask the question of like, well, you must be good with investments and you must be good with math and you must have always liked numbers. And I'm always quick to pump the brakes on any of those and actually explain that that's not necessarily the case. You can be fine with those things, right? But what clients want is a trust relationship, someone that they can go to, and they can put their dollars, right? And that can be a place where they know that we're going to make the best decision in relation to their situation with the dollars, but then also questions that they have, and a home for them to kind of dive into that process with, right? So not so much, hey, how much alpha are you creating in my portfolio? How much potential, outsized gain are you creating? Hey, what's the math of this or that? Can you rattle off, investment returns and, um, fancy complex math equations off the top of your head? It's not so much about that. I always say it's more of a squishy science. Okay. When I sit down with someone, I ask them the question. So what's prompted? What's the change in your life that's making you come and see us? Because that's usually going to tell us a lot of things about why they're there with us. Okay. Oftentimes, the simplest answer, most common answer is that someone wants to retire but doesn't know if they can. Okay. And so we probably do more retirement planning at our firm than other things. And it's just kind of the nature that's when someone finally gets to the point where they're close to retirement, they don't know. They don't know at all if they're in a good place or not. And so, how do we show them using objective tools if we're where we need to be? Well, you have to follow this process, right? So, then at that point, the next step is gathering the information. Information's already gathered for you guys for the capstone. It kind of has to be. And what I mean by that is like you don't get the opportunity necessarily to sit down with someone and interview them, figure out the best way to collect data. There's a lot of really cool and neat resources out there. I use some things that I've created on my own. Sometimes I use things that are created for us from prompts. Um, Honestly, right now we are in the nitty-gritty of using a program called Jump, which is a video or a audio dictation tool that is used to help our clients like basically it listens, puts into notes all the things we're talking about, and then also can put some stuff out into useful whole terms for us. In the past, I've also used some of my own stuff, like spreadsheets even. This one is just a basic, simple spreadsheet that I use with clients where I capture their cash flow, their financial position, and then a little bit more information that we usually need to build a plan, like life insurance, social security, retirement target dates. And then what it does for us is it helps us answer some certain questions about where they're at and where they're going. And so I've added, and these are like Kingdom Advisor tools, Live, Give, Owe, Grow spreadsheet. So we'll give them the percentage of that based on what we have captured. We'll tell them where they're at with regard to like investing. Like these are the different pathway steps for debt management, cash management, savings, and goal-based savings. And then this one right here, which corresponds, I believe, with planner path number 3, right? Which is explaining to us, right, um, where they're at. And so it's just like, hey, client, where are we for just how you're doing in life when it comes to margin? Okay. Because we need to understand if you're struggling, what changes need to be made. A lot of times, financial planning at this point becomes pro bono work. We're just trying to help people learn how to get out of credit card debt, how to dig themselves out of trouble, and how to save for the future. But it's not necessarily like we're going to be involved in that, other than just kind of helping them out. Our firm, like most places, is asset under management driven, right? So we're not charging for meetings. We don't have a clock. If the client feels comfortable enough to invest with us, that's great. And if they don't have that, that's fine. We can still give them advice, sit down with them, even build them plans if need be, right? And help them move along this margin meter, hopefully to a point at some time when they are secure and have surplus, right? Because that's the goal. So as we collect and build plans, the biggest thing that I'm trying to figure out is the monthly change to cash. Okay, so you basically take their income and then you take their expenses. Say they spend, right? That would be per month. Say they spend $6,000 a month, and say, all the other else is equal. We see a number here, right? So let's say they make 85, pay 4,000 in taxes. This number right here tells us so much. It's telling us, do they have margin in their life, right? After all things are accounted for. And so it doesn't, it's not a perfect number because sometimes people save a ton into their retirement 401ks. Sometimes people have other things going on in their lives, but are they able to create margin and capture margin, right? And so that's how it's kind of a tool that I use when building out plans, one of the many tools out there. Okay. I'm going to take a little breather and just double check with you guys. All right. Kylie and Luca and Jake, are there any things that you guys have questions on up to this point?
Nope, not yet.
Thank you, Jake.
Hi. I had a question for
Hmm?
the textbook that's required for this class. From my understanding, like reading the syllabus, we do have to purchase that, correct?
Yes, Kylie, that is
Okay,
correct.
awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I do believe that it does allow you to buy the fourth edition, and that one
Yeah.
is, yeah, that one's a little cheaper.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm. All right, good question. It's like classic syllabus day, right? I should have answered that first, and then we could have just left. Just kidding. All right, so let's just dive right back into this lesson 1 here. We're almost done with it. Um, our data does not always just include numbers, right? And so I love what it says here, the temperament, personality, attitudes, beliefs, financial knowledge, and expertise, right, or experience. it's not talking about my temperament, it's talking about the client's temperament. You know, as a matter of fact, this is like very important. And so I actually have a few scales on my spreadsheet. I should have shown them whenever I had it up. Okay, but I actually don't show the clients these. But these scale measures really help me understand more about the client. That's going to give us huge plethora of information moving forward. And so one is just an emphasis of giving or spending. Okay. And in retirement, especially as we try to help people track forward, how are they going to be doing retirement? Are they on a giving track where they're excited about giving away and giving their kids and seeing their kids enjoy things, and ultimately having an inheritance for them, giving it away to ministries or giving away even of their time? Or are they more emphasis on a spending track? Okay, and I will be honest, most people probably tend to be on that side. But our goal, at least, right, as like kingdom advisors, is to move them down this line throughout time and help them understand the satisfaction that can come from maybe even just marginal or incremental moves from a spending emphasis in retirement to a giving emphasis. Um, Here's another one, money salience. Salience just means awareness, right? And so now we're capturing if someone is high money aware or low money aware. And it's easy for us, especially people who might be getting degrees in this field, to want to see people high money awareness. But I will tell you this, some of the most miserable clients I have are extremely money sensitive. All right. And some of the happiest clients I have sometimes live in this world here. And so we have to be careful, right? And matter of fact, prescribing, all right, as we think about our clients and which way they need to move. I would say people who are extremely low should move higher, and people who are high should move lower. And it's not necessarily a goal to arrive right in the middle, but we need to recognize that because it's our job to help them develop healthier money habits, right? And money relationships. And so, um, this is a big mistake in our field. We see it from Dave Ramsey. He wants to move people on higher money awareness, even if they're already there. And that's dangerous. That's actually a very big thing for me because I can tend to be extremely money aware. Ask my wife. And so if you are moving people further up on that scale after they're already there, this can be a totally miserable existence. All right, to be over here in this high money awareness area, because every dollar you spend, you're recognizing it, and it becomes a problem, right? And so you don't want to over sensitize people who are already up there. Matter of fact, you need to help them understand that money is a vessel, right? It is not anything more than it's important, right? But we can move down here, all right, and have ourselves a much more moderate money awareness. Greed and fear spectrum is the same idea. These don't always operate on opposite ends, but this is really, really healthy when capturing client information. So I have to be really brief on the next part of this. And again, as we kind of look through our initial intake, you can see then the goal, right? We take this data and we prepare a recommendation. In recommendation, we're helping the client understand things, framing their goals and objectives in meaningful process so that they can see, hey, this is where we're going, this is where we need to go. For some client that involves interventions, for some of them, they just need to know that they need to stay the course. For others, they're trying to make big decision and they need our help, right, as an objective third party to come alongside of them and help them make that decision. So just moving on down, right, you can see all these other practical skills that we have. Economic concepts, right, how they flow into all of this. A lot of times people end up with the question of like, wow, you must be an investment advisor. You must be really focused on, right now it'd be like, what is it? The strait over in Iran. And you must be really just kind of honed in on that and how it's affecting markets. Like, well, I mean, I kind of know a little bit, like I've read some articles and have some opinions on things, but in the grand scheme of things, right? Will we be talking about it in the next 5, 10 years? Will it have a huge impact on markets? And even if so, if we do good planning with people, That shouldn't necessarily be a goal, but it is important for us to be well read and understood what's going on in the world, how it's affecting markets, directions the markets are moving, right? Um, and so here you can finally see these last few steps. This is the life cycle hypothesis and some other, I kind of just say like the big ideas, defining ideas in investments. Like life cycle hypothesis tells us that we grow up having nothing. You're at your peak nothingness almost as you're entering the workforce, and then you start making money just to at some point spend it in retirement. And behaviorally speaking, there's a behavioral life cycle hypothesis because this is unfortunately not how we all act. A lot of times we want to keep saving in retirement or some other things like that. And so we've got these adapted ideas out there. I'm sure you've seen Dr. Annette's interpersonal financial models, comparisons of what happens when people save and give, and what happens when people hold on to things and not give. And so it's a wonderful, beautiful illustration. I've not seen this anywhere else, and I use it all the time in class and as I'm dealing with clients, that you don't want to be like the Dead Sea, right? There's no outflow there. And so if you're a person who doesn't give, there's no outflow. And who should give? Everybody. And it actually includes even people who aren't Christians or don't have a giving desire. You are a stale, and you can become very much like a cesspool if you are not giving and there's no outflow there. Also, sometimes people are miserable in their spending and miserable with their money. And there is a solution to that, and it does involve giving. And so having a financial planner tell them that is pretty immense. So here's some math equations here, following just the simple math of arithmetic returns, real and nominal rates as well. Feel free to email me these questions. I'm just going to kind of sift through those. I'm not really going to spend too much time going on this stuff. There's also another lesson. Most weeks we will not have two lessons. And so lesson two is more about cash flow planning. And it really kind of digs in more to what we've been talking about, right? You have all of these aspects of how to capture what it is when it comes to what's coming in and what's coming out for a client. You would think that would be easy. They would just gather all this stuff in a beautiful spreadsheet and they would bring it into you for a client meeting, and it just never happens. I would seriously estimate 5% of potential clients that I meet with come in with a real budget or a real expectation or understanding of how much they actually spend. Those who do bring in budgets of the 5%, probably only 1% of them actually give me a budget that states in real terms how much they spend. Okay. And so because of that, cash flow planning is more of this, we call it a backdoor approach to helping people figure out what they're spending, and helping them figure out, what is, needs versus wants. The challenge with cash flow spending is that we can really hone in on the simple monthly expenses while we disregard the larger non-monthly expenses that typically will have even a bigger impact on our plan. One great example around this time of the year is our tax refund. There are millions of households across the nation that all of a sudden get several $1,000s just dropped in their laps. And then they go out and make purchases on maybe their needs, maybe their wants. But that's not factored in. That's not budgeted, right? Because that's just tax refund money. And so I've given probably 20 people, especially ones who have a tight budget, who have struggled all year long, that they should recommend. I always recommend to them, like, well, why don't we um, maybe don't withhold so much for taxes because you get it all back at the end of the year. And I don't think I've ever had one person take me up on that offer. And I'm always like, well, that's a shame because I'm fearful, right? Fearful what happens if I have a windfall, if I receive a lot of money, making sure that I'm making it last. And if you're stressed all year, is it really worth being stressed if you knew that you could get a little bit of that back from the IRS on a monthly basis, be able to actually appropriate it the right way. All right, so I'm going to stop there and stop sharing my screen. I know there's a lot to go over, and especially this first week, right? Ratio analysis is one more thing I really didn't get to touch much on. Um, Gosh, man, there's a lot of material to go over in a good way. But here's a few pointers, okay? First off, for this week, right? Don't hesitate to reach out to me early. When students reach out early, that helps me know that you have looked at material ahead of time and you've kind of charted out the path before the deadline day, and at least have your questions answered so that whenever you sit down, you're ready to write, and ready to produce a good work. Um, Another thing about just kind of thinking forward now on the practical aspects of planning. I will be gone. I'll be like not available at all next Monday. I've put that on the calendar and the announcements. I did want to let you all know that I have a Zoom recording already, kind of ready for that to drop for week 2. Okay. Um, just give one quick pause to Jake and Luca and Kylie who are on. Do you guys have any other questions before we leave? Or,
No,
oh,
not yet.
okay,
Probably just gonna go back and rewatch part of the lecture and make sure I got it all. And if I don't, I'll send an email.
sure. I will say that the time I've taught this class before, I do also have those videos saved. Sometimes I feel like after I get done, I'm like, did I do as good as last time? Maybe. There's a lot of different ways that that discussion went. Yeah, so feel free if after you watch the first one, you want to hear a different take on it. It's probably very very different actually than this one. Not in a bad way, just different, right? So I might also share that with you at some point. But I'm excited, right? A new class, a new opportunity, and so I love this material, right? And so don't feel like you're ever a burden when you ask me questions, when you text me, when you send me an email, or follow up, especially about feedback that I give you for assignments and things. I am here to help you and help you guys produce a good, finished, polished work. As we begin going through the class, there was other things we'll be discussing too. Like I have not yet talked much about a mock exam for the CFP that I want you all to take. So we'll be discussing that as well. That's just excitement, right? Like there's no way to lose on that if you're gaining experience. If you were to go and become credentialed in this field and take the CFP exam. We've got a representative from Zahn that's going to be talking to us after we get those results back. And yeah, all in all, this is hopefully a wonderful networking opportunity for you and I. I have throughout the years taught a lot of different students from different places. I love that professor and student relationship and the ways that it can go. I would say every couple months I hear back from students all over the place who have questions for me or things that come up. And so don't hesitate to be the one to ask questions and interact. Okay. Appreciate you all. Have a good one.